anything at all. Because what we bring to the table is way more negative than it is positive, and yet still God works out his will in our lives, even through the mistakes we make. Never let anybody devalue your experience. Never let anybody disqualify you because of the things that you've been through or the things that you've done. Because when God called you before the foundation of the earth, he walked with you through every one of your mistakes, and he orchestrates in such a manner he can declare that all things work together for good. The good and the bad of your life. Look at the person beside you. They look real sanctified, don't they? But the truth is, everybody in here is struggling with something. Oh, I feel a breakthrough already. And so we feel like we've got to compensate, and we've got to deny, we've got to cover up, and we've got to avoid. And all that does is it keeps us in the pain of what it is we're trying to avoid. Sometimes you just got to embrace your strengths and your weaknesses and discover that I have to deal with these things, and I don't have to hide what God allowed me to go through. I say that now because I'm looking at a text here where there are certain things that are totally dysfunctional. I mean, completely. Now, I don't think Western people, Christian, particularly Christian, in a monogamous environment, can have any understanding really of what's going on in Joseph's house. I wondered, can I just take a little walk down that road? Now, remember that Jacob actually loves Rachel. And he didn't care too much for Leah, the old man having stuck Leah on him, in a deceitful kind of a behavior. And he had to work a little bit more now to get the one he wanted. Now, imagine with me, just imagine now that we're in tents, and we're not in any hotel with some walls or a house with some thick walls. We're in tents. And every night you want Jacob to come see you, Leah, but Jacob would rather see Rachel. Every time Leah had a child, she named the child in a manner to suggest that her husband is going to get closer to her, until finally she discovered that it ain't about him anymore. It's about God. So she named one child Judah. All the other children were named to indicate that maybe now I'll find favor with this man. Now just think with me now. Not only does he have Leah and he has Rachel, but now he is going with Bilpah and going with Zilpah. So now he's going with both their servants. And in this one house, we have now got 4 women that he goes with. Children by each one of these women. And please tell me that that is not a problematic situation. You can hardly go see your baby mama without having I'm a preacher some grown folk one of these days. Without having some friction of all kinds of proportions. Now understand then how these boys are feeling about each other. And if you just want to take a good look at his brothers, all you got to do is go to the end of Genesis and see what the father has to say about his sons. You're talking about some serious, cutthroat, rough individuals who probably couldn't stand each other. It goes like this. Well, I don't know why you're talking to me, Reuben. You're the maid's child. I don't know what you're going to say to me. I'm legitimate. I don't know what you are, but can you imagine the tension and the disruption that is happening in this household? The mothers not liking each other, the children not liking each other. And here is the situation where God has placed Joseph. Now, it's an interesting dynamic because the Lord has to get Joseph into power in Egypt. And he has to get him there so he can protect Israel. Well, who is Israel? Israel is his brothers. So God now is going to move him into a place where he's got to turn around and protect the fellas that put him in the place in the first place. Now I just got to slow down on that a little. You see, oftentimes we've got to understand that God can put us in a place to protect folk who can't stand us. See, can I just go further? You see, many times we become doubly sensitive to the behavior of those that we bring into our lives, because sometimes we bring people in our lives to help to dissipate what happened in our early life. A lot of folk leave home and get married early or shack up with somebody just to get away from what is going on at home. But as we confront our destiny as a given, unchangeable series of events, which no matter how painful, they need to be acknowledged and accepted. If you notice, Joseph is 17 years old. And at 17 years old, he's really not being vicious. He does not understand the dynamics of his behavior. He's just 17 years old. But he's excited about the dream, and of course he's excited about how his father is treating him, and he can't say, and he is hated by his brothers. It was all right until he got this coat. And the coat then became the beginning of a series of events which increased the hatred for this fella. And now if he allows this hatred to stay within him, if his is to be truculent, or if his is to respond negatively to how they're treating him, then he is not going to do what his destiny calls for him to do. He's going to get in power and then turn around and use his power to destroy those that he was sent to protect. You see, part of your destiny is not only in what you achieve materially, but in who you become while you're on the way to achieve it. And you cannot allow the attitudes of others to taint your disposition, so that when you get in power, instead of allowing God to use you positively, you allow other people's negativity to use you negatively, and you then abort your destiny. I want to talk to somebody just for a minute. You see, you cannot allow other people to put their hatred in you. You have got to let other people realize that you don't have the power to cause me to despise you because you despise me. You don't have the power. I'm not that connected to you that you can destroy my disposition towards you when I am moving in the destiny that God ordained for me. Oh, I feel like preaching. I'm going to give you this one free. I'll give you this one for free. If you have no haters, you're not that gifted. Amen. I haven't told you touch your neighbor yet. It's coming. This is where we begin to experience the relief of one who was a slave and is now free. I'm free when I can operate within the parameters of how people think about me and still achieve what God has called me to do. I can't allow somebody who's going nowhere to get in my space and clog my attitude and disallow me to fulfill what God has called me to do. I cannot allow somebody, I feel it here, who isn't moving according to the will of God to get in my space and stop me from getting where God would have me to go. I've got to get over you, and I've got to get around you. I'm sure not going under you, and anybody who's pulling you down is already below you. God, I feel the freedom then of each of us. Rollo May puts it this way, and I quote, he says, the freedom of each of us is in proportion to the degree with which we confront and live in relation to our destiny, unquote. The term destiny has been reduced solely to catastrophic, secret doom, irrevocable ruin, but that's not what it is. It includes that, of course, but there's much more to it. There is destine, and it's defined as to ordain, to devote, to dedicate in advance, to consecrate. And destiny then is a cognition of the word destination, which implies moving towards a goal. Now, if you look at that, there are two trends in this different meanings. One has the element of direction. The other has the sense of design. So what I have here, as Rollo May says, and I quote again, he defines destiny as a pattern of limits and talents that constitutes the givens in life, unquote. There are certain things that God mapped out for you that you have absolutely no control over. And now comes the question, how does free will operate within the parameters of what God has determined? And the answer is simply that God uses everything that's on the table to bring about what he wants. And it's interesting how God can move you from one place to the other simply because somebody can't stand you, simply because of hatred. Every now and then you ought to give God thanks for your haters because they get you blessed. Every now and then you ought to praise God for the negative folk that have always been around you because they cannot cancel your destiny. Your destiny cannot be erased. It cannot be substituted or exchanged. Can I go deeper before I go higher? Destiny is a term that describes our condition prior to sociological and moral judgments. Indeed, and in fact, it's archetypical and it's ontological. Archetypical meaning the original pattern or model of a work. Now, what God has done in your life that makes you unique, and the reason you ought to stop trying to be everybody else, is that what God has done is he has created created a need for your gift. And if there is no need for your gift, you might as well not have one. What he does is he gifts you, then he creates a need that's idiosyncratic to the gift he has given you. Somebody says, well, if you don't use it, you lose it. No, that's a lie. If you don't use it, you'll be judged for it, because there's a space that's lacking that you did not fill, that God created just for you. Oh God, I feel it here. See, nobody else can be as good as you are. And when you try to be somebody else, you cheat us. Yes, of you. You see, nobody can be as good a Noel Jones as I can be. And I don't have it all, neither do you have it all. That's why we fellowship. Now, you have a unique concept of God that I don't have. And I have a conceptualization of God that you don't have. But I need your peace, and you need my peace in order to comprehend the depth, the breadth, the length, and the height of God's love. That's why we come together. Now, if I come together with you to explore the uniqueness of who you are, and I come over there and find me, then I'm going to be lacking, because I already have me. What I need is to have you. So you have to be who God has called you to be, so you can help me. I feel like shouting. You've got to give God praise for your haters, because they play a part in where God wants you to go. They start oftentimes the whole process. Can I preach now? I'm almost there. When you look at Joseph, then you have to understand that Joseph, in his own weakness and his own attitude, begins to speak things out of his innocence. Every time he had a dream, his brothers hated him even more. First of all, they realized that he was superior in his character, because no matter how gifted you are, your gift can put you in the light and your character puts you in the basement. There are many gifted people we don't use because they have no character. Joseph's character was superior to his brothers, and in his innocence he comes and he tells on them. Now notice, he's not telling on Leah's children, he's telling on the handmaiden's children. Notice who he's snitching on. He chooses to snitch on them out of his own innocence. Now notice, not only does he have favor with his father, but his brothers realize from the dreams that he must have favor with God. He's got superior behavior, he's got favor with his father, and he's got favor with his God. So every time God moves on him and inspires him, he does not have the wisdom not to tell everything at any particular time. But God uses his innocence and uses the fact that he likes to talk about what God is giving him in a dream. He uses the fact to increase the hatred of his brothers. Now notice with me that oftentimes you walk in a building and you have not said anything to anyone, and all of a sudden you feel something coming across that's indicative of somebody just not liking you. I've got news for you. It's not just not liking you, it's being intimidated by the spirit that is operating in you. God, you've got to understand it, that many times it's spirits against spirits. Their spirit cannot harbor your spirit, because like Daniel, you have an excellent spirit. Oh God, I don't care where you put Joseph. If you look through the scriptures, it will tell you that when he was in the Potiphar's house, he had favor because he was prosperous. When they put him in the prison, he had favor because he was prosperous. Everywhere he went with favor because of the spirit that was in him. You cannot allow anybody to mess up your spirit because it's in your spirit that God gives you revelatory experiences, and I need these experiences to walk into my destiny. Can I preach like I feel it? I'm almost there, Pat. It's critical to understand this because your assignment is going to include your enemies, and your assignment is going to include being good to folk who aren't good to you. Your assignment is going to be to lead people into a place of power who would not have led you anywhere. You see, what God is saying is, I'm going to bless you so good that you will bless folk who wouldn't bless you. I'm going to bless you so good that you'll be good to folk who would never be good to you, because I'm going to elevate you to the place where being good to them just shows how powerful I have made you. I'm making you so powerful that I don't need you to take my place. You need to stay in your place that I'm orchestrating for you. Don't take my place. God says, leave my place alone, because vengeance is mine. I will repay. I don't need you messing up your spirit, trying to conspire against folk who are trying to get you down, because they can't bring you down anyway. I feel like preaching. Give somebody a high five for the first time and say, neighbor, let it go. Let it go. You've got too much to do to sit around allowing yourself to be minimized to the point where you're trying to get back at somebody. We might as well have church. Give somebody a high five. Say, I don't need to get back at anybody. I'm too busy doing what God called me to do. I don't need to get back at anybody. I might as well have a little church while I'm here. Give somebody a high five for the third time and say, neighbor, I'm gonna wear my coat. I'm gonna wear my coat. I'm looking at a church full of gifted people on the way somewhere for God, and God has opened the doors, and God has cleansed your past. So now I don't need to hear what I used to be, because a lot of folk will try to keep you bound by what you used to be. But what I used to be has become a part of the parcel that's going to give me more than I would have ever had I not been in that situation. Can I talk to you for a minute? I heard somebody say there's some Peters in here, and I want to say to you, if Peter didn't mess up like he did, he could have never been used by God. Every now and then you step in a place you shouldn't be in, and God teaches you lessons that you would have never learned anywhere else. Now your enemies want to keep you back down in the hole you used to be in, but the devil is a liar. I've come out stronger. I've come out with more power. I've come out with a better vision, with a greater understanding, with more sensitivity. I feel the Holy Ghost in here. Give somebody a high five for the fourth time and say, neighbor, I'm too busy to worry about what negative folk have to say. That's why I heard him say, fret not yourself because of evildoers. They'll rise up and they'll soon fade away. You ain't got nothing to do but check on somebody else's business. The devil is a liar. Why should a glass full be envious of a tub full? Be envious of a lake full. If you're full, you're just full. You can't hold no more water. I feel like preaching in here. Shake somebody's hand like you're going to shake it off.